Man, we got another topic to go over today that is, in my opinion, just another example of an anti-consumer practice that's becoming more of the norm in today's AAA landscape. And that is to push physical media out the door in the video gaming world. So it appears that unfortunately another game could be following this trend, as it does look like for Jedi Survivor is going to require a day one patch before you're even able to play the game. As you can see from this image of the box art, it states right on it very clearly that a download is required. So right up front, I want to make one thing clear. This video is not about the game itself. It's not to say that the game sucks or to bash the game. Honestly, I'm not an insider. I don't have a review copy, so I don't know if the game is good or not. This video is strictly to discuss the information concerning the fact that the physical copy of the game actually requires an internet connection, and before you could play it, you need to download a pretty significant portion of the game itself. But before we take a deep dive into this very anti-consumer practice, I want to take a brief moment and welcome anyone new to the channel. If you are new, please consider subscribing. I got a ton of stuff in the works that I would love to share with you all. Also, if you do happen to enjoy the video, let me know by dropping a like. But anyways guys, we got a lot to get into, so without further ado, let's get into it. So yes, another big AAA game is launching with not all the content on the actual disc itself. And as you can see, we have more to go on than just the download require picture that I put up earlier that's on the box art of the game. If you go to EA's official website to the FAQ section concerning Star Wars Jedi Survivor, when asked about if an internet connection is required in order to play the game, the answer given is as follows. Players who purchase a physical copy of Star Wars Jedi Survivors will be required to connect to the internet to install a day one patch, but can play offline after that if they choose to do so. Players who purchase the game on a digital storefront will receive the patch with their game download. So this begs the question, how much information is actually on the physical disc that you're buying? Do you have to install all 130 gigs of the game to your hard drive if you bought the game physically? Does the disc just have a key on it like Modern Warfare 2 did? Well, maybe not, as Does It Play did come out and say this about the physical copy of the game. We received information from someone with a copy. It is indeed looking like a Hogwarts Legacy scenario. Only about 60 gigabytes is on the PS5 disc. The lengthy first mission plus boss fight is playable. After that, the game tells you to download a patch to proceed. How crazy is it that we live in a world where, let's say you get off work on a Friday night, you go to your local gaming store, whatever, to buy Jedi Survivor. You get home, pop that bad boy in, boot the game up, play the first level, down the first boss, only to be presented that you have to download this massive patch. And think about it. If there's only 60 gigs on the disc itself and the game is 130 gigs total in size, you're going to have a massive download of 80 gigs of additional content just to play the game. That's not counting the fact that I guarantee this game, when you put the disc in, is probably going to want to install those 60 gigs to your hard drives from the disc anyways. I thought the purpose of buying a physical copy of the game was so you're not buying a digital one. At this point, what is the purpose of buying physical copies? And it was crazy to me, as if we look back as time went on, physical copies of games feel like they've gotten cheaper and cheaper, yet the price of video games constantly keeps going up. I mean, back in the day, gaming cases used to be so much more durable, and you would get an awesome gaming manual to go with your game. Nowadays, cases are basically just cheap plastic that feel like they're gonna fall apart at any second. They literally feel like tissue paper in your hands, and gaming manuals are a thing of the past. Instead, we open up our case and we look inside to see a piece of paper that's usually an ad for either DLC or another upcoming game from that same publisher. And it gets even worse. We're getting to a point where an actual physical copy of the game is either just a digital licensing key on disk or just has a tiny bit of data on the disk that allows us to beat the first level. Back in the day when I used to get a CD, put it in the machine, and I could only play part of the game, we called that a demo disc, not the game disc. Plus, to make matters worse, in this scenario, all of this could be avoided. Just release the game on more than one disc. Thus, people with no internet connection could actually enjoy the physical copy of the game that they purchased. Or, hear me out. Here's another idea. Put the Series S version of the game on disc. After all, it's been reported that if you download the game digitally on the Xbox Series S, it's only a total of 44 gigs. So you could easily fit the entire game on one Blu-ray disc. Yes, I know, you won't get all the fancy 4K textures you would expect to see on your Series X or PS5, but at least you would have a functional game on the physical disc you bought, and you can make the optional patch the 4K textures. Therefore, if you have a PS5 and you don't want to download a whole 130 gigabytes of the game to run on your system, you could just play it on the lower texture support and play the game at 44 gigs. In fact, not only should they do that for the physical copy, that's how the digital copy should be too. You should be able to select which one you want to download if you have the more powerful consoles. But instead of giving consumers options, what we're seeing is a push from these big publishers to kill off physical copies in gaming. At least it feels that way. I mean, I said it in this video and I've seen it online over and over and over again. If you buy the physical copy of the disc but have to download the game anyways, what's the reason or what's the purpose of a physical copy? They want to get us in that mindset so we stop buying physical, and that way they don't technically kill off physical gaming. It looks like the consumer is making the choice to go to a digital only future. But here's my biggest problem with this idea of a digital only future on consoles, and that is simply going to kill competition. And no, I'm not talking about console wars. I'm talking about competition for gaming prices. When we have the option to buy the game digital or physical, companies have to compete for our money. If the game is cheaper to buy a physical copy, then the consumer could run to the store and save, let's say, 10-15 bucks and pick it up, or vice versa. Cheaper for digital, buy digital. And it's not just physical versus digital. Retail stores compete with each other during their massive sales. If you look at Black Friday sales, you often see Target versus Walmart versus GameStop versus Best Buy or whatever. We have options in where and how we buy our games. If physical dies, the competition dies. And even if you're strictly a digital only type of guy, this should still raise some concern for you, because if options start to disappear, sooner or later, the consumer is going to get the short end of the stick. When we lose options, the consumer always loses. Plus, do we really want to live in a world where we're 100% locked into walled gardens that are basically complete monopolies on our platform of choice? After all, the PlayStation and Xbox are 100% closed ecosystems. Now, you could bring up PC. After all, PC is basically a digital only platform at this point. Yes, I know you could buy physical PC games, but it's a very small amount or a small minority that does so. However, here's the difference between PC and the consoles. PC is an open platform. You're not trapped to a single store like Steam. You could buy your games from Good Old Games, from Green Man Gaming, from the Epic Games Store, or from the Microsoft Store. You have options. In the console marketplace, if we get rid of physical copies of games, you are completely walled in. And for some reason, we view this as okay. I mean, if you look at any other form of media, look at movies. Even if you buy all your movies 100% digital, your device doesn't lock you into one movie storefront. You could buy your movies from Amazon or Apple or whatever. Same with music. Let's say you have an iPhone. You're not trapped and locked into Apple Music. You could download Spotify or Pandora. I mean, you have other options, even if you're in a closed ecosystem like Apple, but they still allow for the competition on their platform. I doubt we will see the day where you will ever see an Xbox storefront on PlayStation or a PlayStation storefront on Xbox. The consoles are 100% walled in. And I'm not suggesting that we should open those walls and let other stuff come in, but for digital only future to work on the console, I think that would be the only way it would be consumer friendly. After all, as I said before, they've cut corners on gaming cases and gaming manuals. You don't think that they're gonna go cheap when it's digital only and they can set the prices to whatever they want? If you don't like it, it's either leave the console space or just deal with it. Do we really want to roll that dice that they're going to look out for the consumer once we kill off competition? But maybe I'm just completely off. Maybe this is not a push to kill off physical copies of gaming. Maybe they just don't want to put the game on the disc anymore. I really don't know. But before I wrap this up, I want to bring up two very quick points before I end the video. Number one is sometimes on this channel, I talk about indie games or smaller games that are digital only, that do not have a physical release. And the reason I'm okay when an indie game does this is because sometimes these games are made by one person or just a small team of dedicated, passionate people. It's unrealistic to expect these guys to design a game and have the business connections to also get the game shipped, published, all that stuff for a physical release of the game. It's just the reality of the situation. Secondly, this is not a video, like I said at the start, to criticize the game itself, Jedi Survivor. It's just to point out a trend that I'm starting to see happen more and more again that I'm concerned about. And speaking of Jedi Survivor, I've seen that some spoilers have been posted online. Please do not put any spoilers for the game in the comments down below. I mean, like I said, this is a game that has a lot of hype behind it, and this could be someone's most anticipated title of the year. And I think it's pretty messed up that some random jerk could just post some random comment of a spoiler, and if someone comes across it, you just ruin their experience. That's not cool. Please don't do that. But I want to hear what you all think. Are you guys kind of tired of what I consider shady practices from these big gaming publishers? Do you think it's an actual push from the big publishers to try to slowly kill off physical media? Or do you think I'm completely wrong and you really don't see an issue with this at all? Let me know in the comments down below. As for me, I got a ton of work to do, so I'm going to get back to the grind, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.